Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deb Flashenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening. Hi, I'm Deb Flashenberg, and I'm your host of Yoga Birth Babies. And today we have a community birth story. Erin Amato came on and talked about her birth. For her second baby, she chose to have a home birth. And she talks all about her decision making. She talks about how she wanted to bring her first child, her older daughter, into the experience. She talked about the support she had from her midwife and how she was really able to feel supported as for the decisions that she made. One of my favorite things she talked about was wanting to be in the birth tub and spending a good portion of her birth in the tub. And then when she was done and she got back into her bed. And it was just a lovely image I had of how her birth unfolded. I've been making a conscious effort to increase our birth stories on the podcast is because I want to celebrate all the different ways in which people can choose to birth and all the different scenarios that unfold from a surgical birth to twin birth to a home birth, and that there's no right choice. What's really important to highlight is there are choices, and the choice that is right is the choice that is right for you, where you feel safest, where you feel most seen, and where you feel that you are most supported. And so today we're going to talk about home birth. Before we get to that, I just want to remind you guys about what's happening with classes right now. So just a little bit of a snapshot of where we are in time. We're having quite the spike of COVID in New York City. So for now, the studio is still open for in-person classes. I hope it stays that way, but we have made a commitment to continuing our class offerings. So while we may have to close the studio for a small time, we still are going to have our classes at least online. Hopefully we'll be able to keep our offerings of in-person and online, but we've made a commitment that this community is really important, and seeing you and serving you during this time where you may feel disconnected from community and your loved ones, that we're going to still show up for you. So you can check out our website, prenatalyogacenter.com, and you can enroll and take our classes. We can still be here for one another. And while you're on that website, go over to where I have a free downloadable. It's called 5 Simple Solutions to the Most Common Pregnancy Pains, and grab it. So if you can't make it to class, you got a sheet that's going to give you some direction on what to do if you do have some aches and pains. And even though it says pregnancy, you 100% can apply that to postpartum, because I know you got some aches and pains from that as well. We're also making a change in what we've decided to do for our teacher training. So I've been saying that we're going to do March and April back in person, but taking a look at where we are right now in this pandemic, we're going to keep that one online as well. So there's a few spots left for January and February, but then we've also opened online for March and April. So if you've been listening to this podcast, or you're just super interested in a very in-depth evidence-based yoga teacher training, prenatal yoga, then I've got you covered. Check that out as well at prenatalyogacenter.com. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just say thank you for those that have come on and left a rating and review. I know your time is valuable, and I know it takes some effort to come to the podcast on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening to, and leaving a rating or review. I appreciate it. It helps people find us, and I appreciate you and your time for doing that. You know, I said that was our last thing, but I lied because I forgot. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Boober. They are doing our childbirth ed and our newborn and lactation prep classes, and I've really enjoyed working with them. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about them. So if you're looking for lactation support, birth doula, mental health therapist, postpartum doulas, if you go to getboober.com and use the code PYC, you're going to get 10% off your first service. And one thing you'll notice in this conversation, Erin talks a lot about the support of having a doula, which is obviously something I love. And I just want to point out that 10% off your first service can be getting 10% off your birth doula at getboober.com. All right, now I'm really going to stop talking. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, please enjoy my conversation with Erin.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Erin, I am so excited to speak with you. How are you?
Hi, Deb. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It is so great to see you on the other side of this whole thing, because I remember seeing you throughout your pregnancy in the studio, and I was really taken by, how you did go a little further past your due date, but then also just your commitment to showing up and taking care of yourself and hearing about how you planned your birth. So I'm really thrilled that you're okay with me putting on air your birth story. Yay.
Yeah, I'm excited, and it feels good to be on the other side of it, too.
It does, doesn't it? No, nothing to those that are pregnant, but it might feel really nice when the situation was done. I guess so before we hear about your birth story, which I'm excited about, I would love if you could just tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, for sure. I was born and raised on the Jersey Shore, so that's where I hail from. And now I live in Harlem with my husband and now our two daughters. And I'm a high school math teacher, so I've been teaching in New York City. This is my 7th school year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's sort of where I came from and where I'm at now.
I was going to say, how was it teaching during the pandemic?
It was... When my first daughter was born in February of 2020, my school went remote, but I was on maternity leave. And a part of me was feeling weirdly a little bit of jealousy that my colleagues were learning remote instruction. And I was like, wow, there's some really cool things that you could do in that setting. Lo and behold, I got a whole year of remote teaching because the pandemic is still ongoing.
Yeah.
So, although there were a couple bright moments where I got to do some really creative lessons online, it was really hard. Kids are the best part about being a teacher. So it was really hard not to get to have those moments of saying hi in the hallway. And that's the best part. So it was tough.
And then with your first child being born February 2020, and then your other daughter being born about a month and a half ago, you've only known parenthood during a pandemic.
That is true. That is true.
Wow.
I know.
That's a lot to take in. Is that one of the reasons that, I guess we'll talk about the home birth choice in a few minutes, but I'm wondering if that was one of the reasons that you chose that direction?
Actually, no, it really wasn't. I mean, the first maybe month or two with my first daughter in February and March and April of 2020, that was really tough because, my husband and we imagined having support through having a newborn, and we were so excited to share her with our family, and we just couldn't. We were just alone with her. So it was not what I was expecting, and it was a unique experience. But this time around, that really wasn't a factor in our choice.
I was curious. So I'll ask you a little more in detail, but I'd love to hear, how did you prepare for this pregnancy differently than your first?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest difference would be the work that we did to prepare our daughter. We were planning a home birth, and we knew that she may be a part of that or around for some or all of that. And we wanted to make sure she knew what to expect and what was going to happen. So we read a lot of books with her about some home birth stories, and we practiced making noise like mommy would make when she's in labor, which is hysterical because my almost 2-year-old can, I say, if we talk about it, she just starts moaning. Which is very
it's like Pavlovian dog birth.
Yeah. And yeah, just kind of, I think the transition the second time, she was my main concern, and talking to her about what it would be like during the birth and after the birth. Mommy will need rest. Mommy will be in the bed. So that sort of thing was definitely a priority. And then what else did we do differently to prepare this time around? We still took a birth class, a quick refresher, which was great. And, instead of packing a hospital bag and thinking about how to make yourself comfortable at the hospital, we got to just think about what we might need at home.
Mm-hmm.
So
did you have a doula for both? I know you for your second, but what about your first?
Yeah, we had the same doula for both, which kind of an interesting story there. Our doula with our firstborn was amazing. We loved her so much. And during the pandemic, she moved out of state. So when we found out we were pregnant with our second daughter, I reached out to her asking for a recommendation in the city, since she had been a doula there for so many years. And she is so funny. She said, I really want to be your doula. I wonder if there's a way we could make this work. So a couple of weeks went by, and she made a plan to host a doula training in the city in the fall. And she took on a couple other clients in the city in the fall. So she just planned like about 1 month period where she would be around. And she was our doula again. She was there for the birth of our second daughter, which was incredible.
Who was
Talk
it?
About amazing support. It was Francie Webb.
Francie. Oh, that's right, because she lived up in Harlem.
Yeah. That's actually, when we were talking with doulas the first time around, we were like, we love her and she's so close. So
she's great. I could see her being such a calming and yet also comic relief doula. she's hilarious.
Oh my God. I'm like, I can't give birth without you. And then she came from Virginia to be there. It was so amazing. And then of course, she had to stay extra long because that's how it all went down. But
oh, wow. Oh, I love hearing that story. So tell me a little bit about what prompted you to explore having a home birth this time.
It was our doula, Francie. I'll give her all the credit there. She said, have you thought about having a home birth? And I said, yeah, I've thought about it, but we had a really great experience at the hospital the first time around. So I sort of felt, originally, I know what that is like. That's comfortable to me, something I've already done before, and that's where we'll be again. And she said, if there is any part of you that thinks you might be interested, I just want you to talk with this midwife, and, just talk with her. It can't hurt. And she said, but I warn you, if you talk with her, you're going to want to have a home birth. So I said, okay. And she was right. After my husband and I met with who ended up being our midwife, we really felt that was going to be the right match for us. We felt really excited about it, and we felt just comfortable doing it. Yeah.
Well, Tanya's also a really special person. She and I went to college together, so I've known her quite a while. She's been on the podcast a couple times too, but she is a very special midwife and a very special person. And she doesn't live that far from you as well.
Yeah. All of those things are true. Yes. So if you think you might want a home birth, don't talk to Tanya or you'll be having a home birth.
So what did you notice the difference? Because you said you were happy with your hospital experience. And I'm guessing, was it an OBGYN at the hospital or was it a midwife there too?
It was an OBGYN.
So what did you notice the difference between working with an OBGYN compared to a midwife?
Yeah, and like I did say, we had a really positive experience at the hospital and all throughout our prenatal care there. But you hear so many stories about, things that can happen at the hospital that just where care providers are maybe a little bit pushier or more insistent, and may just be anxious to speed up labor or intervene with labor for one reason or another. So although we had a positive experience, I did have sort of that fear factor of like, what if I'm giving birth, I'm at the hospital, my OBGYN isn't there, and, it's one of her partners who I met one time, and I'm sort of seeing the side of them now that I don't know. Mm-hmm. So that was definitely another factor in our decision. And I think, the main difference about the care with the home birth midwife and OBGYN, I really felt like my whole person was being taken care of. My mental health, my physical health, my baby's health, my family's health, just the interest for everyone to be happy and comfortable and set up for success. I just felt it throughout the prenatal care and the birth itself and the postpartum care. I mean, the accessibility, just being able to text a quick question and get a response. I mean, to me, that was so valuable.
Yeah, you don't feel like you feel really, or at least I'm going to speak for myself. I had the same thing with my midwife, and I felt very seen, and I felt that I wasn't being a pest. If I had a question, it would get answered and with a recognition of, I'm a little nervous about this. And with a quick response, it just, I don't know, it made me feel taken care of. So I'm wondering if that's similar. Sure. Yeah. So,
I would definitely agree with that.
What was it that, I'm really curious. Again, Tanya Wills, I'll make sure she's in our show notes. She's the midwife. What was it that was appealing? Like when you spoke with her, you're like, oh yes. I want this.
I guess I have to say first that I've always been I'm a worrier. Okay. So like I'm the person that maybe has a headache and all day is worrying that it's a brain tumor. Like that's just my nature. And although I've worked hard to move away from that sort of thinking, I think being pregnant, giving birth, having a newborn, those are sort of triggers for me that make that thinking really come back. So one reason that I was like, I'm not having a home birth was because I'm like, I don't want to die in my bedroom, basically. And as irrational as that is, it was like a thought that crossed my mind anytime someone said home birth. And after I talked to Tanya, she's just like any question I had, what if this happens? What if that happens? She's like, just tells me how she can fix it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she can do anything, She's like, oh, that happens, that happens. I've handled that so many times. And just her calm finesse, she has everything that the hospital has. She really can help you through all of that, through any situation. So I just felt so much confidence after talking to her. I thought I'll be better off with her.
Yeah, no, I was curious. That's wonderful. So we're going to take a super quick break, but when we come back, I'm just going to let you take the stage, and I want to hear your birth story, which is great because I'm hearing little chirps from the result of your birth story from your second daughter.
Yes, I am. I'm here holding my 5-week-old, so that's that noise.
All right, we'll be right back.
This episode is made possible by PwC. A robot may not be coming for your job, but competitors are coming for your market share. At PwC, we pair the right tech with the right solutions to help you gain a competitive edge. Reimagine operations from the cloud, fuel innovation with responsible AI, and detect risks before they become headlines. That's human-led and tech-powered. It's all part of The New Equation. Learn more at thenewequation.com.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, the floor is yours. I'm excited to hear your whole story.
All right. My story starts 12 days late. Both of my daughters were born 12 days after their due date. And, I think looking back, I feel like I should have learned the lesson the first time around. I should have, better known what to expect in terms of going past your due date and how that feels emotionally. And nope, I really just let my emotions have that same roller coaster ride the second time around. So, a week past my due date, I started having some contractions at night for a couple hours. They would disappear, and that feeling is so frustrating at that point in time when you're 41 weeks pregnant and expecting to meet your baby, and the contractions start and you feel that excitement. You feel, this is it. This might be it. What if this is it? And then a couple hours later, you are just having a regular day. And it feels disappointing. It feels like, oh my goodness, every time I would come to yoga, I'm like, my baby's never coming out. And then you would say, they always come out. So
we've never left one in. They always come out.
Both times I think I had to have the same talk in class, which is so funny. So I just, it started off, the labor started off emotional and feeling frustrated for a couple of days. It really happened for almost 4 days, a couple periods of contractions for several hours. And let's see, it was a Thursday, midday. I was feeling some contractions, and then I lost my mucus plug, and I text my midwife and I text my doula. And my midwife said, she said, I can't promise anything, but I think your baby's going to be here in 24 hours. When you lose your mucus plug on second baby, she's like, this is normally how it goes. So that was sort of exciting, but at that point I was, nervous to have my hopes up for anything. And that night I was having trouble sleeping because of some light contractions. And at one point I thought they were picking up, and I even called her, and she said, okay, call me if it picks up anymore, or if it changes. And I ended up falling asleep for a couple hours. So when I woke up in the morning, I was just, crying at certain moments, and just, I can't believe that it's not happening. And it was a really rainy morning. It was pouring rain. And my husband said, why don't you try to go for a walk to see if that changes anything? And I said, didn't want to go by myself. So I talked him into going with me. Our incredible nanny, thankfully, was with us. She comes a couple mornings a week, and I feel like we hit the jackpot that she happened to be there at this particular morning. We went for a walk, and on the walk, I was, having to pause, stop walking, and starting to make some noise for a couple contractions. And we got home. I took a shower, and I noticed that in the shower, I had 3 contractions that I was making noise through. And I thought that I hadn't been in the shower very long. So I called my midwife to tell her that. And she said, great, I'm coming over. And she was on speakerphone. And my husband was shaking his head and making the no sign. And I was like, yeah, you do not need to come. I'm perfectly fine. I'm managing. It's really light. She said, I'm on my way. And I kind of was I'm laughing. I'm like, what are you going to do when you're here? You're going to be sitting here all day. And I called my doula to tell her the same thing. I said, I just called Tanya and I told her this, and she said she's coming. And my doula said, "Oh, this is so cute. You're in denial." She's like, "This is classic second time labor denial." I was like, "No, really, I'm fine. Nobody, I'll call you when I need you." She said, "I'm putting on my coat." I'll tell you, by the time they both arrived at my apartment, I'm so happy they were there. It was exactly, they were both right. Seems like they might know a little bit more than me. So yeah, that was maybe like around 9 a.m. that we called them. And by 10 a.m. they were both there and we were setting up the birth tub. And I was really having to focus my energy on managing the contractions when they came. And it was funny because the tub was something I said I didn't think I wanted. And if anyone else out there is debating about doing the tub, do the tub. It was so incredible.
How much time did you spend in the tub?
Like about an hour and a half in there.
Wow.
And they were saying, "Get in the tub." And I was like, "I don't think I need to get in the tub yet." And as soon as I got in there, it really felt great. It felt a lot of relief. And that, that was maybe around, I think 11 o'clock I got in there. And from that point on, I was just, really focused. The feeling like of, having that break in between contractions and feeling a little bit scared for the next one to come. Mm-hmm. But like, as soon as it came, feeling like excited that it was going to end and I was going to have a break. So having all of these like emotions in just a matter of a couple of minutes. It was so hands off. My midwife and my doula and her assistant, they were just in our kitchen space. My husband and I were in our bedroom and he was just helping me, holding his hand. I think, it might have turned into biting his hand as things progressed. After the birth, I was like, "Was I biting you?" He's like, "Yeah, a little bit." I'm really sorry about that. And she, and then right at the end, as things really picked up, I'm like, "How do you know when she's coming out?" That's what I kept saying. "Is she coming out right now?" And Tanya's like, "No." I'm like, "How do you know?" She's like, "I can just tell. It'll be a couple more minutes." And I'm like screaming like a little bit louder. I'm like, "Oh yes, happening now." And my daughter was out for a walk in the rain. I think emotionally I was like, waiting for her to come home. I was like, I kept saying, where is she? It's raining out. Where are they? Our nanny had taken her for a walk because things were so crazy in our apartment. And as soon as I heard them come in, I had a contraction and I could hear my daughter saying, "Mommy, mommy, mommy." And I was like, "Oh no, like she's worried about me. I'm being so loud." And a couple more contractions passed and I just heard her playing at that point. She was like, whatever the noise was, she had adjusted and she was used to it. And I could hear her saying hi, to the friendly faces in our apartment. Like, another amazing thing about my midwifery care was that my daughter knows Tanya and she went to a couple appointments with us and she knew who was going to come over to help the baby out. So I heard them all greeting my daughter and I heard her feeling happy. And I think that's like the point where I really started to relax. And then, my daughter was born at 12:44 p.m. So it wasn't long after all that. And as soon as she was born, I asked where my older daughter was, and my husband showed me on the baby monitor that she was asleep. So she was in the other room, slept through the last, 20 minutes of labor. And I just felt so much relief at that moment, so much relief. And, when the baby came out, she did have her cord wrapped around her neck. And in the moment, I didn't know too much about what was going on. And it all happened so fast. She came out, we held her up. My midwife took the cord off, and within a moment she was, crying and doing just great. But I've watched the video of the birth. And it's just so incredible to see, to watch my midwife and watch her expressions, and you can see her body language change when she notices the cord, and she just says, okay, I'm going to give me one good push right now. And she just is so calm, and she just removes the cord, and she's smiling through the whole thing, and she holds the baby up, and it was just so incredible. And then I got out of the tub and I got in my bed. And that was the best part. I knew it would be the best part, and it was the best part. And my husband could sit in the bed next to me. There was no hospital bed involved. And for me, those creature comforts were really, it felt great. And the hours after that, it really did.
Where did you deliver the placenta? Were you in your bed for that? Or were you still in the tub?
I was in my bed for that. It was weird. I wanted to get out of the tub. Like, I felt a little like loosey-goosey holding the baby in there. I was kind of like, get me. They're like, do you want to get out? I was like, yes, please help me out of here. And like, the tub was like the best thing ever. And then I immediately wanted to get out, and then I got into my bed. So it was great. And then it was even better.
That sounds, I love hearing that story. I could visualize the whole thing. And, I'm all for however people want to birth, but I feel like sometimes home birth gets a bad rap of like the midwife isn't prepared and you're kind of left on your own. But I appreciate that you shared really the capability of the midwife and how you felt taken care of and how you felt safe. I think that is an important thing for anyone and how they birth is things will unfold better if someone feels safe where they are. So for some people, a home birth may not feel safe and they're going to feel freaked out the whole time. And that's not going to lead to a very functional birth. Or others, you might feel actually more anxious in a hospital. So I think what really stood out to me is just how cared for and how safe you felt and how that allowed birth to unfold. So that was delightful to hear. And it was so interesting hearing you talk about your daughter and almost like you were holding out for her to get there.
Yeah, I think I was. Yeah, I think that made me feel, that's like at the moment where I started to like, my mind had been on her, and as soon as she was home, I could kind of just give all of my energy to what I was doing. And then it came from there.
How did you end up introducing your older daughter to your younger daughter? Did she wake up pretty soon thereafter? She slept for maybe like another hour, an hour and a half. And we had asked a friend a close friend to come and pick her up at about 2:30 when she normally wakes up from her nap. So the friend was there ready to pick her up. And, my husband and I looked at him and I was like, I think we might need a little bit more time. Like, the tub hadn't been fully cleaned up. There was still everyone was still in and out of the room. So I said, I think, let's just send her outside to play for an hour. And then when she gets home, I think it will be better. So they just kind of shut the door to the bedroom, and I heard them scoot her outside. And I'm so, so, so glad that we did that, because just having that a little bit of more time, when she came home, our midwife, our doula, the assistant, they had all cleared out. Everything was put away. Our apartment felt so calm. I mean, you would have never, ever, ever known what happened there that day, which is just unbelievable. And she came home and she climbed right up into our bed. And my doula had actually suggested not holding the baby when my daughter came to meet her. So I'm glad that I had that piece of advice. We just had her laying in the middle of the bed, and I was just sitting there, and she climbed right up into my arms, and we looked at the baby and we talked about the day. And it was incredible. She just, pointing at her eyes, nose, mouth. She was just kind of looking at her body and saying all that she could see, which was really cute. That was really sweet. What a wonderful way to introduce this new member of your family to your daughter. I love that. I also appreciate that you shared about the story that the baby had the cord around the neck, because it's something I know a lot of people fear. It's about a third of babies actually have a nuchal cord. My daughter too had that, and I didn't know until after, kind of like the same thing that you had, where the baby came out and the midwife kind of just like, I think she said she like somersaulted her out and removed the cord. But hearing that can be handled at a home birth, I think can also take some of the fear away from that. So thanks for sharing that. When did you realize it? Was it after or during?
It was, I think, in the moment once she came out, my midwife said, and she has the cord wrapped around her neck, I'm just going to remove it. And I think I said something like, is she okay? Is she okay? And my midwife said, yeah, she's going to take a breath right now. And then like within seconds, she did. And it was like, I didn't even have time to have like the full rush of adrenaline or panic. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, it's over. It was over before it started, which was really cool. And, it was weird. It was kind of, we didn't talk about this, Deb, but from about like 32 to 35 weeks, the baby was breech.
Yes. And I thought you and I didn't talk about that. I'm like, yes, we did.
I know. Well, yeah.
I did on the podcast.
I know. It hasn't come up yet. It has not come up yet in the story. But that was, I had listened to a couple other home birth stories, and I had the ECV, and it was successful, and she was flipped, no problem. But, in the back of my mind, I had heard like that's, maybe it increases the risk of the cord being wrapped around the baby's neck. And so that was sort of like a little bit of a fear of mine. And, who knows? It could have been from that, and it could have been, it could be totally unrelated to that. We'll never know. I'll never know.
Right.
But I guess like a part of me, when it happened, I was kind of like, I felt like that was going to happen. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, of course, if it didn't happen, I would have never thought about it again. But I had just like sort of that moment there.
But let's also talk about that, because I remember in class when your baby was breech and doing all the spinning babies, and we talked a lot about that. And I remember when baby did turn head down. Since you had been working with a home birth midwife and planning for that, what was happening in your mind about the backup plan? I'm assuming, was Tanya going to deliver if the baby was breech, or what was your backup plan?
Yeah, she was willing to. And she had, she said she would bring another midwife with her, someone that just for additional hands and additional support. And the midwife she was going to bring, I think, delivers vaginal breech babies maybe more often than your average practitioner. So yeah, she definitely, one thing that is so amazing about Tanya is that she just presents you with all of the options. So she just presented that as an option. We never really got to the point where we had to decide what we were going to do, because the ECV was successful. But that was definitely an option for us. I don't know if it's what I would have went for. I think that if the baby was breech, I might have felt more comfortable with Tanya in a hospital setting, But yeah, at 32, I went at 30 weeks for a quick checkup, and everything looked great. I went back at 32 weeks, and her head was down, and Tanya said, she's like, let's just wait on this. Let's monitor this. And, there's nothing to do yet. At 34 weeks, she was still down. And that's when I kind of went into action with acupuncture, visiting the chiropractor. It was late September. I was able to get into a friend's pool a couple times. So, trying to do a stand, do a handstand
stand in the pool. I love that.
I know. I'm like, oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm like, this is going to work. This is going to work. It felt great to swim. So, I'm sort of thankful in the sense that that all happened at that point in my pregnancy. So nice. And I was coming to yoga frequently at that point. And asking you for help and going home and doing the poses that we were practicing in class. I think we had a couple flip the baby yoga classes.
We did. We definitely had flip the baby. And then after we had get baby engaged. So once baby was down, we did a lot of tip the baby into the pelvis. I remember doing those.
I know. I'm so lucky that we had, we were gearing it just towards this little baby.
Absolutely. Well, tell me, what's postpartum been like? It's now 5 weeks out.
Yeah. Wow. I think similar to, I felt like maybe I could have learned in my first pregnancy what it felt like to go past my due date. I feel like this time I should have been better prepared. I sort of feel the same way about postpartum. Like, you know that the hardest part isn't the birth itself, but the time afterwards, regardless of like, I just feel like I put so much energy into thinking about the birth itself and labor and postpartum has been, so much more challenging or consuming. So the baby part has been 1,000 times easier than it was the first time around. And the having a toddler while having a newborn part has been just something I would have never known how to prepare for. And it's challenging. I mean, they both have such different needs and just such different schedules. And, my husband is amazing, but he does not have much time off from work. So I'm sort of the point person for both of them during the work day. And it's definitely tricky. My toddler had, I would say, like about 2 weeks where I just noticed her behavior. Like she was really challenging and more or less like she really wanted me during a lot of times and wouldn't accept help from anybody else that was around to help. And she has slowly adjusted, and that sort of jealousy that you could sense during those initial days definitely is receding. And she's so sweet with her sister, and it's the best feeling in the world to see them together. But they both still need help, and yeah.
It's hard. It is hard.
It is hard. Yeah, it's hard. I think the first morning that I had them both by myself, I'm like, okay, it was like early in the morning. They both needed a diaper change. I'm like, okay, we're both going to lay down on the blanket. I'm like, within like 6 minutes, they both had poop on them. And I'm like, I'm like crying. I'm like, well, how does anybody do this? But as the baby is getting, we're at 5 weeks now, and she's just a little bit more alert and spending more time awake and, playing a little bit more on the blanket and that sort of thing. I can feel that we're moving in a direction where it's going to be okay.
It will be. It might have its ups and downs.
Yeah. That first morning I was like, this is never going to happen. It's literally impossible, but
you got past it. I remember the very first time I took both kids out of the apartment by myself. And this sounds, other people might be like, that's crazy. Like I was wearing one, the other was in the stroller. And all I was trying to do was go to, I think it was Starbucks, because that was only a few blocks from my house. Like I had very low expectations, or it might have been Whole Foods, which was still pretty close. And my goal was just to walk out the door, and it took, of course, like an hour, to get two kids rallied. But it's overwhelming. Like when you are the point person, as you said, for everything, and they're little, it is overwhelming. So let's say kudos for you getting 2 diaper changed at the same time. That is a big deal. That's a really big deal. So give yourself some credit.
It feels good to hear you say that. It feels good to hear you say that, to know that, other people have that same feeling. And I'm like, they're both going to go to school one day, right? Like this we'll get there.
I still to this day remember getting just out the door. It was winter. Okay. One was on my body. One was in the stroller. And as soon as I got out of the apartment building, I'm like, you're doing it. You can do, like, I did almost doula myself. I'm like, you can do it. You can do it. Just keep walking. Like it is terrifying. So I hope that's supportive to you and all the parents out there that are juggling too. It is a deal changer. It really is. It's a game changer there.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite moment from the podcast so far. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take another break. When we come back, is there something you learned from your first birth and move into parenthood that you did differently this time? Not just where you birthed, but kind of your process or just how you moved through it. We're going to be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Skylight Calendar. Let's be real. Running a household can be exhausting and chaotic. And finding the perfect Mother's Day gift, it's not exactly a no-brainer. Until now. The Skylight Calendar is the best way to organize the family and give everyone, especially mom, some peace of mind to enjoy the things that matter most. The Skylight Calendar is a smart, touchscreen calendar that keeps track of and manages the chores, dinner planning, groceries, and to-dos for the whole family. The Skylight Calendar automatically syncs each family member's digital calendars and displays them all together on one color-coded touchscreen. It even doubles as a digital picture frame, so you can finally share all those special moments that are just sitting on your phone. As a limited-time offer for our listeners, get 15% off your purchase of a Skylight Calendar when you go to skylightcal.com/easy. That's SKYLIGHTCAL.com/easy. Get 15% off your Mother's Day purchase now at skylightcal.com/easy.
Okay, so I think we all learned from our past, at least try, maybe not successfully, at least for me. Is there something that you learned from your first birth or transition into parenthood that you consciously did differently this time?
Yeah, I think, I would just say worrying less about the baby. Having a newborn for the first time is a little bit terrifying, right? They make noises and they do certain breathing sounds and breathing patterns where it just feels like, are they okay? And I know you have an episode about,
I do.
what you have, because it's so real, right? You have this little tiny creature and there is a getting to know each other period. So I think this time, the biggest difference are what we are doing differently. I don't know if I would say it's consciously or if it's just sort of now our nature, but things with baby number 2 are so much calmer and honestly more enjoyable in that sense. Just getting to enjoy her and not feeling afraid of her or afraid for her. I think it's the biggest difference. And I know this isn't like a parenting choice, but she's just eating better and sleeping better. And it feels maybe that is a result of just being able to follow her cues and not worrying so much about following the rules, so to speak.
Trusting yourself?
Yeah, trusting ourselves and just knowing that she's okay. She's peeing and pooping and eating and she's
doing all the things
okay.
she's supposed to at 5 weeks. How did it feel when everyone packed up and left? Like your doula, Tanya, her assistant, and then you guys were just at home.
Yeah, I felt a little bit like, please don't leave.
I was curious. The only reason I was asking is because I'm like, as a second-time parent, did she feel, what was that like? Because after our first, when everyone left, we were terrified. We're like, now what do we do? What do we do? We were waiting for our postpartum doula to arrive. We're like, we just have to keep this baby alive for a few more hours until the postpartum doula. And our second time, we definitely felt a little calmer, but I was wondering if you had that same, because in a hospital, after you have your baby, you still have a staff around you. So if you need someone, they're there. So I was wondering how it felt, when you were on your own.
Wow. Yeah. I can't imagine the first baby being at home and that feeling. That would be, I felt what you're describing, but I would imagine it's even more exaggerated with the first. When my midwife left, I just felt like, bye, I'm going to text you if I need you. And I know that you're right there and I know that you're going to answer. And I did, the first couple of days I did reach out, and the responses were so quick and reassuring. It was just like it's a whole nother level of care. It's really incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But when my doula was leaving, I just felt so happy for her because she had been, like I said, staying in New York. And, she was, of course, she knows that my first pregnancy went long, and she knew that was a possibility this time around, but she was away from her family to be in the city for the things that she had planned. So I just felt so excited for her. I'm like, this was sort of the last thing she had to do, and she was there for it. I was so grateful, and I was like, go home to your family. Goodbye. Thank you. And again, and she's so accessible. I mean, it's incredible now, right? A couple of days in, when my milk was coming in, I was sort of like having a moment, like the baby wouldn't latch, and I'm just like, I just FaceTimed her, and she answered, and then she helped me. So that's incredible. Even though they were leaving,
is
they were
very
there.
good when it comes to lactation. I mean, you kind of lucked out. Francie's really good. Like, I was a doula, but the lactation part was never my forte, and Francie's really good with that. So I'm happy that you had that support. So what is one tip or piece of advice you would like to offer new or expectant parents? So you've gone through this rodeo twice. What's one thing that's popping to your mind?
The most impactful thing for us and for our births was having a doula. And if anyone out there is considering getting a doula or doesn't have one yet, definitely do that. Francie helped us navigate our first birth in the hospital, and I can't imagine what it would have been like if she wasn't there. When you're in the hospital, there's a lot of changing faces, and everyone does something, everyone does something sort of differently, and having like that calm, consistent voice that really knows and internalized what we had hoped for, and could remind us of that. I think that's really when I look back at both my births, I'm just like, she is the person that made them as incredible and meaningful and special and positive as they were. So I want everyone to have that.
That is beautiful. And that is a tribute also to your doula. And it's a wonderful thing to have continuous support. And I hope it's something that everyone at some point is able to have access to that, because I know it's not available to everybody, but I think continuous support, and whether it's a doula or a friend or like a trained doula or a friend or just someone that can support you, continuous support is so, so, so important. Oh, Erin, I loved hearing your story. I'll say selfishly, I wanted to hear it because I watched you go through a lot of this, and it's always a beautiful thing to hear the other side and to see the full circle. So thank you so much for being open and sharing your story on the podcast.
Thank you for having me and talking with me, and it feels great. I think getting a chance to tell your story is, another way to process your birth. And the last 5 weeks have been a whirlwind, so it feels really nice to sit down and reflect on that. So thank you so much. I'm happy. I got a lot out of it as well, so thank you.
Good. I'll see you in postnatal yoga.
Yes. Sounds great.
This has been an episode of Yoga Birth Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Thanks for listening.